Section 1. The paradox of awakening, when depth becomes loneliness. There comes a moment in a person's journey, a quiet, piercing realization, that once you see, you can no longer unsee. The illusions that once held the world together, romantic ideals, social roles, validation, they begin to crumble. You no longer seek comfort in the same distractions. You stop playing the games that keep most people entertained. And that's when you begin to feel it. The silent loneliness of awakening. Alan Watts once said, "When you look for what you love, you are really seeking yourself. And that's why love eludes you, because you cannot possess what you already are." Those who awaken spiritually begin to see love not as possession, but as connection, free, fluid, untamed. But the world doesn't understand this kind of love. It is a love without cages. And that terrifies people who live in them. Most people want love that secures them, that guarantees attention, predictability, safety. But the awakened soul seeks love that frees them. And that's the paradox. When you transcend attachment, you also transcend the world's definition of love. You stop needing. And in a world built on need, that makes you unrelatable. You may find yourself sitting across from someone. They speak of forever. You think of presence. They speak of possession. You think of liberation. They want promises. You want truth. And so the connection burns bright but dies quickly, because your depth exposes their fear. But don't mistake this loneliness for failure. It's the beginning of clarity. The world will tell you something's wrong with you, that you're too distant, too calm, too detached. But what you're really experiencing is the quiet after the noise, the peace after the illusion. Love for the spiritually awake is no longer an escape. It's an extension of understanding, of empathy, of being. You no longer fall in love. You rise in it. And yet in that rise, you will often find yourself alone, not because love has abandoned you, but because the version of love you now recognize is rare. Section 2. The psychological depth of spiritual isolation. How awakening changes your capacity for attachment. The moment you awaken, truly awaken, something in your psychology shifts. You stop craving attention and start craving authenticity. You stop needing people to fill your silence and start valuing those who can sit in it. It's not arrogance. It's evolution. Spiritual awakening doesn't just open your mind. It rewires the architecture of your desires. You begin to realize how much of your past love was built on fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of being unseen, the fear of not being enough. And once that illusion burns away, you no longer fall for the same emotional traps. The games that once seduced you, the validation, the chase, the drama, they no longer taste the same. You crave something deeper, cleaner, simpler. But in a world addicted to stimulation, that simplicity feels foreign. Psychologists might call it emotional detachment. But in truth, it's emotional mastery. You've stopped reacting and started responding. You've stopped clinging and started observing. You've stopped trying to fix people and started to understand that healing is a door that only opens from the inside. Alan Watts often reminded us that trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. And yet, that's what most people in love try to do. They look for themselves in someone else. They use love as a mirror for identity. But the spiritually awake have already seen behind that mirror. They know there is nothing to find there, only reflection. And so they cannot attach the same way again. You begin to see people not as saviors, but as souls on their own timeline. You stop needing them to complete your story, because you've realized there was never a story to complete. You were never broken. You were simply asleep. But this kind of clarity comes with a price. Because while you are growing stillness within, the world keeps spinning in chaos. People will accuse you of being cold. They'll tell you you've lost your passion. But what you've really lost is illusion. The illusion that love requires pain. That connection demands sacrifice. That being spiritual means pleasing everyone. You've simply stopped mistaking attachment for affection. You've stopped confusing obsession for devotion. And most of all, you've stopped calling dependency love. You begin to understand. True love cannot be owned. It can only be experienced. And to experience it fully, you must first be whole on your own. That realization will isolate you, but it will also liberate you. Section 3, The Stoic Secret to Inner Peace. Why Detachment Creates Deeper Love. The Stoics understood something most of the modern world has forgotten. That detachment is not the absence of love. It's the purification of it. Epictetus once said, "When you kiss your child, whisper to yourself, they may not be here tomorrow." At first that sounds cold. It sounds almost cruel. But it's not. It's the most powerful form of presence there is. Because only when you accept the fragility of something can you truly appreciate it without fear. Detachment doesn't kill love. It removes the poison that distorts it. The neediness, the control, the expectations that twist affection into ownership. You see, when you are attached, you're not really loving. You're trying to possess. You're trying to extract certainty from something that's inherently uncertain. And that is the birthplace of suffering. The Stoic, however, does not demand permanence. He understands that all things are transient. People, emotions, even his own self. And so he learns to love without clutching, to care without claiming, to give without needing to receive. That's why the spiritually awake often struggle in modern relationships, because they don't need to own someone to feel love. They simply exist in it. And this kind of freedom, this calm detachment, terrifies people who haven't yet faced their own emptiness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." Notice that balance, acceptance and devotion in the same breath. That's the Stoic heart, unmoved by outcome, yet completely engaged in experience. You can't manipulate a Stoic heart, because it doesn't chase validation. It doesn't seek security in another. It stands firm in self-sufficiency. And from that grounded strength, it can give love that is pure, uncontaminated by fear or desperation. When you love from attachment, you live in anxiety, always fearing loss. But when you love from detachment, you live in gratitude, always aware of the gift. You stop asking, "How long will this last?" and start whispering, "How beautiful that this exists at all." The Stoics and the spiritually awake share this understanding, that love is not something to acquire. It's a state of being to embody. And only when you stop clinging to people, outcomes, and ideals can you truly taste the stillness that sits beneath all chaos. That stillness is peace. That peace is power. And that power is love unshaken. Section 4, The Paradox of the Awake Heart. Why you outgrow the love you once wanted. When you begin to awaken, truly awaken, something tragic and beautiful happens at the same time. You start to outgrow the love you once begged for. You see, before awakening, you chased validation. You wanted someone to notice you, to choose you, to say you're enough. But once your eyes open, you realize you were never meant to be chosen. You were meant to choose yourself. That shift changes everything. You no longer crave attention, you crave alignment. You no longer seek excitement, you seek depth. And in that depth, you find a kind of peace that makes ordinary relationships feel shallow. Not because others are lesser, but because you can no longer pretend. You can't go back to the small talk, the games, the performative affection. Your soul knows what it feels like to be seen without masks, and anything less feels like a betrayal. This is the paradox of the awake heart. The more you grow in consciousness, the fewer people you can truly connect with, because awakening expands your awareness beyond the limits of ego. And most of the world is still asleep, still living through masks, wounds, and projections. You'll notice something strange. You can be surrounded by people, yet feel completely alone, because you're no longer looking for company. You're looking for resonance, and that's rare. It's not arrogance. It's energetic truth. You've evolved beyond conditional connection. You no longer love out of loneliness. You love out of overflow. But here's the hard part. When you evolve, you will trigger others who haven't. They'll call you distant. They'll say you've changed. They'll tell you you've lost your spark. But what they really mean is, you've stopped feeding their illusions. You've stopped shrinking yourself to fit their comfort zone. And that threatens the version of you they once knew. Alan Watts once said, "You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago." Yet in love, people will demand that you are. They'll cling to your old identity, the one that needed them. But when you awaken, you no longer need saving. You need understanding. And that's something very few are ready to give. So yes, you'll lose people. You'll outgrow relationships that were built on your former self. But in doing so, you gain something greater. Clarity. You stop chasing potential and start choosing peace. You stop trying to fix and start allowing things to be. The awakened heart learns to let go without bitterness, to love without attachment, and to walk away without hate. That's not indifference. That's mastery. Because true spiritual strength isn't in how tightly you can hold on, but in how gracefully you can release. And when you reach that point, you understand the only love worth having is the kind that doesn't cost your peace. Section 5, the final lesson. Love without needing, walk without looking back. There comes a point in your awakening when you stop searching for love because you become it. You no longer wake up craving a message from someone. You no longer scroll through the memories of who left you. You no longer feel that hollow ache in your chest that whispers, "Why am I not enough?" Because you finally see, it was never about being enough for them. It was about remembering you were always enough for you. When Alan Watts spoke about love, he often said, "Love is not something you do. It is the very nature of being." And when you truly understand this, you stop trying to get love. You start to be love. That's when the magic begins. Because when you no longer chase connection out of emptiness, the right energy finds you in fullness. When you stop demanding that others complete you, you attract those who complement you. When you stop fearing loneliness, you become magnetic, because you now radiate something the world rarely sees. Contentment. This is the quiet confidence of the awakened soul. The calmness that says, "I don't need you to see me, I already see myself. I don't need you to love me, I already live as love." And paradoxically, that's when love finds you. Not because you're desperate, but because you're detached. Not because you seek validation, but because you embody vibration. You learn to love without grasping, to connect without clinging, to care without control. You understand that everything is temporary. People, emotions, even this very version of you. And that truth doesn't make you sad. It makes you serene. Because when you accept impermanence, you stop begging for forever and start cherishing now. That's the essence of Stoicism and spiritual awakening combined. To love the present fully, without being enslaved by it. To engage deeply, but never depend destructively. To walk away, not because you're cold, but because your peace is sacred. And so, the spiritually awake man or woman doesn't chase love anymore. They live in alignment. They give freely, but never foolishly. They care deeply, but never desperately. They walk away easily, not because they don't feel, but because they understand. Understanding is the final stage of love. When you understand, you forgive. When you forgive, you let go. And when you let go, you rise. So if you can't find love, don't despair. You are being refined, not rejected. You are being prepared, not punished. You are becoming the kind of energy that can hold divine love, not the superficial version of it. Alan Watts once said, when you let go of the idea that you are something separate, you begin to live in love. That's the truth hidden beneath heartbreak, loneliness, and rejection. They are simply the universe removing illusions, so you can remember what you already are. Whole. So stop trying to find love. Start being the presence that creates it. Because when you master that, you stop chasing what's temporary and begin living in what's eternal. Now, if this message spoke to your soul, like the video to help it reach someone who needs it. Comment below with your own original motivational quote, something born from your experience. And turn on notifications to stay tuned for more deep Stoic life episodes, where we explore the art of stillness, power, and inner mastery. Until next time, stay calm, stay grounded. And remember, love is not found. It's realized.